She was half pinned against the log, dress torn with dust, breath breaking apart, while a man twice her age closed in and told her not to move. Her hands were shaking so bad she couldn't hold the fabric together. Knees drawn tight, eyes wide with panic, staring at a stranger who looked strong enough to hurt her, if he chose to. The sun burned straight down, no shade but a dead cottonwood, and nobody else was around to hear her scream if she tried. He crouched behind her, close enough that she could smell sweat, leather, and old tobacco, and his voice came low and flat like this wasn't new to him. In the sunlight, a thorn the size of a finger was buried in her thigh, and every breath made it bite deeper. "Hold still," he said, one hand already reaching, the other steady as stone, her back arched away on instinct, pain shooting up her leg, fear flooding faster than blood ever could. "It hurts," she gasped, breath tearing loose. "This is my first time." For half a second, he froze, not because he didn't understand the words, but because he understood them too well. He swallowed once, eyes narrowing, jaw tightening, and for a heartbeat it looked like the worst thing she feared might actually happen. Then he said it, calm and cold, like a man who'd learned how to end suffering without ceremony. "It'll be over quick." From a distance, it would have looked wrong. A young woman pinned in the dirt, an older rancher looming behind her. No witnesses, no law. That's the kind of moment people judge before they understand, and sometimes before they bother to kick. But if she moved even an inch more, the thorn buried deep in her thigh would tear muscle, fester in the heat, and maybe kill her slow. And Caleb McRae knew that, because he'd watched stronger men die from less, back when the sun and bad luck were enough to put you in the ground. Clara Whitmore didn't know his name then, didn't know he was 49, didn't know he'd buried more friends than most towns had graves. All she knew was the pain, the shame of being held still by a stranger, and the terror of not knowing what came next. She clenched her teeth, fingers digging into her skirt, voice breaking again. "I've never had anyone pull something this deep out of me," she whispered, forcing the words out before fear could turn them into something uglier. Caleb nodded once, not looking at her face, not letting himself soften. "Don't look back," he said. "Count your breaths." He used a piece of clean cloth, water from his canteen, and a small pair of iron tweezers worn smooth from years of honest work. When he pulled, she cried out, sharp and raw, and the sound cut through the open prairie like a gunshot. Then it was done. Blood welled, pain eased into a dull throb, and the worst part passed exactly as he promised. She sagged forward, shaking, still alive. Caleb wrapped the wound without comment. Hands steady, movements respectful, never once taking what wasn't given. He looked up. That's when he saw a thin brown line on the horizon, moving fast, wrong for cattle, wrong for wind. Riders, and the way Clara's fingers locked around the old Bible in her lap told him everything she wasn't saying. Before we go any further, let me be clear with you. This story has been gathered from old frontier records, retold accounts, and weathered memories, then carefully rewritten with a few added details to carry stronger lessons, deeper meaning, and better storytelling. All images you see are created by AI, used only to help you feel the heat, the fear, and the weight of those moments long gone. If this kind of story isn't for you tonight, it's all right to step away, get some rest, and take care of yourself. But if it holds you, if it makes you lean a little closer like you're sitting beside an old fire, then leave a comment so I know. And I'll keep bringing you stories worth staying up for. There's one more thing you should know before we move on. If those riders caught her right there, nobody would have called it a kidnapping. They would have called it a recovery. That's how men like Silas Crowe win. They don't need the truth. They just need a story that sounds official. Clara knew it too. That's why her fingers were locked on that Bible like it was the last door left open in a burning house. And Caleb, he wasn't staring at the horizon because he liked drama. He was counting how long it would take a horse in this heat to cross that open stretch. And he was counting how many mistakes he could afford. Because once you get outnumbered on flat ground, you don't get saved by bravery. You get saved by timing. And Caleb McRae had learned to respect timing the hard way. Caleb helped her to her feet, slow and careful, keeping his body between her and the open land. "You can walk," he said, "but not far." She nodded, swallowing hard. "Thank you," she whispered. Then, after a pause, "They're looking for me." Caleb didn't ask who, didn't ask why. He just watched the rider's line thicken on the horizon, the sun slide lower, and felt an old weight settle back onto his shoulders. Because whatever Clara Whitmore was carrying in that Bible, men were riding hard through summer heat to get it. And if they caught her, the pain she felt today would be nothing compared to what came next. So here's the question you need to sit with before this story goes any further. When the law belongs to the highest bidder and mercy puts a target on your back, would you risk everything to protect a girl you just met? Or would you step aside and let the desert decide her fate? Caleb didn't wait to see how many riders there were. He'd learned a long time ago that if you pause too long, the land decides for you. And the land doesn't care who's right. He took Clara's arm, not rough, just firm enough to keep her moving, and guided her away from the dead cottonwood toward a low fold in the ground that dipped down toward the river. "Easy now," he said, not loud, not soft. "Short steps. Don't rush it." Her leg still burned, but the pain had changed. Wasn't sharp anymore. It was the kind that reminded you were still alive, and that mattered. They moved with the sun at their backs, dust sticking to sweat, flies circling like they always did in Kansas heat. Clara stumbled once, and Caleb steadied her without comment, like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. That steadiness was what calmed her most. Not kindness, not words, just the sense that this man had walked through worse and come out breathing. They reached a shallow break near the Arkansas River, where cottonwood shade thinned the heat. Caleb stopped her there and checked the bandage again. "Still holding," he said. "Hurts means it's working." She managed a small nod, then looked back the way they'd come. The dust line was thicker now. "They won't stop," she said, more to herself than to him. Caleb followed her gaze. "No," he said, "they won't." He led her to his ranch cabin. Nothing more than a squat wooden place with a lean-to and a corral that had seen better days. It wasn't much, but it was quiet, and it wasn't on the main trail. Inside, the air smelled like dry wood, coffee grounds, and a life lived alone. Caleb handed her water, then set about cleaning his tools like this was just another afternoon. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, Bible tight in her hands, eyes tracking every sound outside. "You can rest," he said. "They won't ride straight in here. Not yet." Clara tried to sit still, but her hands wouldn't listen. She kept wiping her palms on her skirt like she could wipe fear off the same way. Caleb saw it and slid a tin cup toward her without looking up. It wasn't kindness dressed up fancy. It was just a man offering water because he understood what shaking meant. Outside, the afternoon insects sang like they didn't care who lived or died. Inside, the cabin felt smaller every minute, like the walls were leaning in to hear her secrets. Clara stared at the Bible, then at Caleb, not because she trusted him yet, but because she didn't have anyone else left to mistrust. Caleb kept his eyes on his hands, cleaning and wiping and setting things in place. Men who've carried a badge, even once, they learn a habit. They make order when they can, because they know chaos always shows up uninvited. Clara took a slow breath. She didn't want to tell him the whole truth. The whole truth got her father hurt. The whole truth got her hunted, but half-truths were how people died on the prairie. So she decided to give him one thing that mattered. Not names, not money, just the reason a man would ride through summer heat to take a Bible from a young woman. She stared at the Bible a long moment, then spoke so quietly he almost missed it. "I didn't fall off my horse," she said. Caleb didn't look up. "I figured," he said. That was it. No judgment, no questions stacked on top of pain. She took a breath. "My father was a surveyor," she said. "He found something men don't like to share. He didn't send me alone by choice," she said. "The wagon was hit at a crossing, and the men who were with us were either scattered or dead. He pushed this Bible into my hands and told me to ride until my lungs burned." Caleb rinsed the cloth, wrung it out slow. "Water," he said. She nodded. "A source near the Cimarron," she said. "Strong enough to keep cattle alive through summer." That made Caleb finally pause. Everyone west of Dodge City knew what water meant. In a dry season, it meant power. It meant survival. It meant blood if the wrong man wanted it bad enough. He hid the papers in the Bible, she said, lifting it just a little. He told me not to trust anyone with a badge, and he told me if I stopped to ask permission, I'd be buried before sundown. That last part sat heavy in the room. Caleb set the cloth aside and leaned against the table. You did right coming off the trail, he said, and wrong trusting the open land. She gave a tired half smile. I didn't have many choices. None of us ever do, he said. Later that afternoon, hoofbeats stopped just short of the corral. 3 men rode in slow, hats low, eyes sharp. The one in front smiled like he was visiting family. Afternoon, he called. Name's Silas Crowe. We're looking for a young lady. Caleb stepped out onto the porch, body relaxed, hands empty. No young ladies here, he said. Silas smiled wider. Shame, he said. She's been reported missing. He held up a paper, edges crisp, ink fresh. Caleb didn't step closer. Paper's clean, Caleb said, but the story isn't. Silas's eyes flicked past him, just once, toward the door. That's not your trouble, Silas said. Hand her over and this stays a quiet place. Caleb shook his head. Not today. Silas studied him for a long second, then tipped his hat. Heat makes men stubborn, he said. We'll give you time to cool off. They rode away slow, like men who knew they'd be back. When the dust settled, Clara came to the doorway. They're going to burn this place, she said. Caleb didn't argue. Maybe, he said. That gives us a little time. As the sun dropped, he packed light, food, water, ammunition. He didn't touch the Bible. That stays with you, he said. For now. She watched him work. You could still walk away, she said. No one would blame you. Caleb smiled. Just barely. I already walked away once, he said. It didn't sit right. Outside, the land went quiet, and that way it does before trouble. If you're still with me, now's a good moment to settle in. If these stories matter to you, take a second to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Pour yourself a cup of tea or coffee, get comfortable. And tell me in the comments what time it is where you're listening from and where you're hearing this story tonight. Because once they leave this cabin, there's no turning back. And the next choice Caleb McRae makes is going to decide whether Clara Whitmore keeps her future or loses everything before the sun rises again. They left the cabin before dawn, when the air still held a trace of mercy and the land hadn't decided what kind of day it wanted to be yet. Caleb took them east first, not because it was the right direction, but because it was the wrong one. He'd learned early that most men chase straight lines and simple answers. Clara rode quiet behind him, wrapped in a borrowed coat that smelled like dust and old soap. Every movement still reminded her of the thorn, but the pain stayed manageable. It was the kind of hurt you could live with if you had to. They kept it to shallow draws and low ground, moving where the grass bent instead of broke. Caleb checked their back trail twice, once with his eyes and once with his gut. You're doing fine, he said without turning. Just don't fight the horse. I'm not, she said. I'm fighting the day. That earned a short breath from him that might have been a laugh once, years ago. They rode another mile in silence, and Caleb lifted a hand for her to slow. He slid off his horse and walked to a patch of dirt where the grass had been pressed flat. Clara watched him kneel, touch the ground, then pinch a little dust between his fingers. He rubbed it slow, felt the dampness still clinging. He didn't need a speech to say what he found. His shoulders tightened, and that was enough. They passed here, Claire said. Caleb nodded. Fresh, he said. Not many words, but his tone told her the rest. Silas wasn't guessing. Silas was reading them like a book. Claire swallowed. I'm slowing you down, she said. Caleb looked back at her, and for the first time his face softened, just a hair. No, he said. You're reminding me why I shouldn't waste time. Then he did something that made her stomach drop. He turned them toward the main road for a short stretch, out in the open where anybody could see them. Clara's voice went thin. That's where they'll spot us. Caleb nodded again. That's the point, he said. And that was when she realized he wasn't just running. He was setting a trap of his own. By mid-morning, the heat settled in proper, the kind that crawled under your shirt and stayed there. They turned north and then west, letting the land roll them toward a Dodge City. Clara finally spoke again when the town came into view. "I thought we were running," she said. "We are," Caleb said. "Sometimes that means running straight into people." Dodge City looked the same as it always had. Dust, wood, noise pretending to be life. Wagons creaked, horses stamped. Men leaned where they shouldn't and watched things that weren't their business. Caleb brought them in slow, like they belonged. He tied the horses near a general store and helped Clara down, careful of her leg. She hated that she needed it. He hated that he noticed. Inside the store, the air was thick with flour dust and sweat. Caleb bought bandage cloth, coffee, and a small tin of salve. He paid cash, no names. Clara stood near the counter, Bible pressed to her side, eyes low. She felt the looks before she saw them. "You all right, miss?" someone said. She didn't answer. They stepped back outside, and the sound of a piano spilled out from a saloon across the street. Laughter followed it, thin and sharp. "That place sells trouble," Caleb said, "but sometimes it tells you what you need to know." They didn't make it 3 steps before a hand caught Clara's arm. "Careful there," a voice said. "Town's full of thieves these days." Caleb moved without thinking. Not fast, not loud. Just enough. The man's grip broke, and the air shifted. "You let go," Caleb said. The man laughed, but his eyes didn't. "What are you going to do?" he said. "Run crying to the sheriff?" Caleb leaned in just enough for the man to smell him. "Last chance," he said. The shove came quick and wrong. The fight ended quicker. Caleb used the man's weight against him, put him into a post hard enough to knock the breath loose, then stepped back. No show, no victory dance. He wasn't young. He was pushing 50, but his hands knew rope and iron better than most men knew their own temper. Few people clapped. Most didn't. Clara stood frozen, heart racing. "Let's go," Caleb said. They didn't see Silas until it was too late. He stood across the street, hat tipped back, watching like he'd been there all morning. "Well," Silas said, "that answers that." Caleb stopped. "So does this," Caleb said. Silas smiled. "You always were good at choosing the hard road," he said. That was the first time Clara realized they knew each other. Silas stepped closer, voice low. "You should have stayed gone," he said. "I tried," Caleb said. Silas's smile faded. "This girl's carrying something that doesn't belong to her," Silas said. "You hand her over, and Dodge City stays friendly." Caleb shook his head. "She stays," he said. "We go." Silas's eyes flicked to Clara. "You hear that?" he said. "He's betting your life on pride." Clara met his stare. "He's betting it on decency," she said. Silas laughed. "That's not legal tender," he said. He stepped back and raised his voice. "Sheriff," he called. "We've got a problem." The sheriff came slow, like a man who already knew which way he was leaning. Papers changed hands, words got softer, eyes stopped meeting. Caleb watched it all and felt the old truth settle in. The law didn't disappear. It just learned new owners. They left town under stares and silence, riding hard now, no pretense left. By sunset, they reached open land again. Caleb didn't slow until the light broke apart behind them. They camped near a shallow bend, far enough from the road to stay unseen. Clara ate little, then sat staring at the Bible. "He's not wrong," she said finally. "They'll keep coming." Caleb nodded. "That's why we stopped running," he said. She looked up. "Where?" she asked. Caleb looked toward the dark line of land far south. "Cimarron," he said. "That's where this ends, huh?" The night closed in around them, quiet and heavy, and somewhere between Dodge City and that dark river, men were already riding to cut them off. The question now wasn't if they would be caught. It was who would be standing when it happened. They broke camp before first light, not because they were rested, but because the night had turned uneasy. Caleb felt it in the way the horses shifted and in the way the dark stayed too quiet. He packed without speaking, movements practiced.